Good day, dear students. In this chapter, that is Introduction to Constitution of India and Professional Ethics, making of the Constitution, milestones in the making of the Constitution will be covered. So this forms the first module of your subject Constitution of India, Professional Ethics and Cyber Law. And this is the first video for the first module. Good day, dear students. In this module we shall see about the introduction to Constitution of India. What was the necessity of making this constitution, what led our elders, what inspired our elders to build our constitution, what was the society behind before the formation of the constitution and after the adoption of the constitution, what are the various influences, the factors that influence the formation of the constitution. We shall see about the idea behind making the constitution, the salient features of our constitution. We shall also see about the preamble to the Indian Constitution, what was the roles and responsibility of the Constituent Assembly, the fundamental rights and its limitations, how the fundamental rights for an individual is formed and what are its limitations. We shall see about the directive principles of the state policy, its relevance in today's scenario and how the directive principle influences the administration of our country and the state. The fundamental duties of an individual will also be covered in this module. So as seen from the presentation, the Constitution was passed by our Constituent Assembly in the year 1949 on 26th November and it was applicable since 26th January 1950. So this day we celebrate as our Republic Day. So Constitution came into effect on 26th January 1950 and it was passed by the Constituent Assembly, that is the House of the People, on 26th November 1949. Constitution as on date incorporates all the amendments until the 78th amendment done in the year 1995 on 30th August 1995, and after that there were no new amendments until December 96, and amendments after December 96 have not been included as of now. However, there have been lot of amendments that has been happening even till date. And India is a federal democratic republic country which has 28 states and 8 union territories as on date, and each state is administered by a governor appointed by the president, while each union territory is administered by the president himself through a minister. So the latest addition to the union territories was the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir and union territory of Ladakh, which was earlier a state and now has been divided into 2 union territories. Our country follows bicameral parliament and it is composed of Council of States, that is called as the Rajya Sabha, and the House of the People, that is called as the Lok Sabha. So you have bicameral parliament and there are representatives from the state that go into the Rajya Sabha, and the people of Lok Sabha are directly elected. They contest elections and they are directly elected into the House of the People. The Council of States will consist of 250 members, or the Rajya Sabha has 250 members, out of which the President will nominate 12 people based on their experience and people who are having special knowledge or practical experience in respect of literature, art, science and social service. So the people who have contributed in literature, art, social service and science will be nominated by President to Rajya Sabha, and remaining 238 seats will be filled by the process of election, and the persons are to be elected by the legislative assemblies of the respective states, and it will be done in a staggered manner, wherein re-elections will be done for every one third of the people for every once in 2 years. So what it means is that 33% of the people will be selected by the legislative assembly for a particular state, and they will be selected for a term of 6 years, and after 2 years again for the next 33% the voting will happen, or 1/3% the voting will happen, and again after 2 years for the remaining 1/3 seats the voting will happen, and after the completion of 6 years the people who had taken charge for the first term will be posted for re-election. The House of the People, or the Lok Sabha, is composed of 552 members, that is 530 members from the state and 20 members from the union territories, and 2 members will be nominated by President, who will be from the Anglo-Indian community. If the President feels that the Anglo-Indian community is not represented properly in the House of the People, then he will nominate 2 people from the Anglo-Indian community. The state of Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Telangana and Uttar Pradesh have bicameral legislatures, whereas other states have unicameral legislatures. For example, in Karnataka you might have heard about Vidhan Sabha and Vidhan Parishad. So you have both the upper house and the lower house in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Telangana and Uttar Pradesh. The upper house, that is Legislative Council, are re-elected to 1/3 of their member every 2 years, or in other words 33% or 1/3 of the people are elected once in 2 years, and once they are elected they will be the member of this Legislative Council for 6 years, and they will go for re-election after 6 years. The legislative assemblies are chosen by direct election, that is the Vidhan Sabha. Even you have the right to vote. After 18 years of age you will be exercising your vote for the election of the legislative assembly, or in the state of Karnataka it is called as Vidhana Sabha. There are some extraordinary features of the Indian system of government. For example, the constitution encourages the states to introduce prohibition. That means, for example, in state of Gujarat, Bihar, Mizoram, Nagaland and some states of Manipur, they have already banned the production and possession of and consumption of alcohol. So these states are considered as dry states. So the constitution encourages the states to introduce the prohibition. So the states can take up the call and introduce the ban on certain products as per the environment or culture of the state. The provision relating to citizenship, elections, provisional parliament, temporary and transitional positions were given immediate effect on 26th November 1949, while rest of the constitution came into force from 26th January 1950, and this date is referred to the constitution as the date of its commencement. So the date of commencement of the constitution is considered as 26th January 1950. Making of the Constitution. The Constituent Assembly, which had been elected for undivided India and held its first sitting on December 9th, 1946, and it reassembled on 14th August 1947. So Constituent Assembly, which we refer to Lok Sabha in today's date. Okay, it had been elected for the undivided India on December 9th, 1946, and they had reassembled on 14th August 1947. So according to the scheme recommended by the cabinet, the essentials of the schemes were as follows. That is, each province and each Indian state or group of state will be allotted total number of seats proportional to their respective population, and roughly they had calculated it in the ratio of 1:10 lakhs. So for every 10 lakh people, one representative will be present. Okay, as a result of this, the provinces were to elect 292 members and the Indian states were allotted a minimum seats of 93. And the seats of each province were distributed among the three main communities, that is the Muslims, Sikh and the general, and it was done in proportion to their population. The member of each community in the provisional legislative assembly elected their own representative by method of proportional representation and with the single transferable vote. The method of selection in case of representatives of the Indian states was determined by consultation. But unfortunately, there was partition of the country and the territories, and due to this partition, the territories which fell under Pakistan and those members who were part of the Constituent Assembly ceased to be members of the Constituent Assembly. So they stopped representing their particular states or locations in the Constituent Assembly due to partition, and it was reassembled on 31st October 1947. So the members of the House were reduced to 299, and of this 284 were actually present on 26th November 1949 when Constitution was proposed, and all these 284 people appended their signature to the Constitution, and Constitution was finally passed on 26th November 1949. There were certain milestones in the development of the Constitution, or this can be considered as the reasons that developed and influenced the formation of our Constitution. So milestones in development of the Constitution are as follows: the Regulating Act of 1773, the Regulating Act of 1773, the Charter Act of 1793, the Charter Act of 1813, and the Charter Act of 1833 and the Charter Act of 1853. So these were brought under by the British, which led to the formation of our Constitution. All these acts, the experts from all these acts have been used in the formation of our Constitution. The second one is British paramountcy, end of company rule. So in the year 1857, that was the first war of Indian independence, British paramountcy ended the company rule and the Government of India Act of 1858 was formed. And in the year 1861, Indian Councils Act, formation of the Indian National Congress in 1885, Indian Councils Act 1892, and the split of the Congress and demand for Swaraj or self-rule influenced the formation of our Constitution. Then the Congress came in extremist phase. So Congress was in the extremism phase, and Government of India Act 1909 also formed during this time. The Government of India Act 1919 was formed. Then the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy in the year 1919 also happened. So the excerpts from these incidents have been incorporated in our constitution, which led to the formation of our constitution. After this, the advent of Gandhiji. So Gandhiji introduced certain non-cooperation movements in year 1920, then Simon Commission 1927, the Nehru Report 1928, and the Civil Disobedience Act of 1930. So the lessons learned from all these acts have been incorporated in our constitution. Finally, the Government of India Act 1935. This became the backbone of our present constitution. So the present constitution is majorly based on the Government of India Act 1935, which declares about how the constitution has to happen, how the federation is to happen, what is the provincial autonomy, how the hierarchy at the center is to be formed, the bicameral central legislature has to be created, the distribution of the power between center and provinces. All this is explained in this, the Government of India Act 1935. Then finally, the demand for Constituent Assembly. The Act of 1935 failed to satisfy the Indian aspirations or the Indian demands. And in 1938, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru formulated the demand for the Constituent Assembly. The Cripps Mission Acceptance of Demand. In the year 1942, Cripps Mission came into effect and it recognized the demand of the Constitution to be framed by the elected Constituent Assembly. So India was to be made a dominion, and dominion status was to be given to India, and Cripps' proposal were rejected by Gandhiji, and he started the Quit India movement in the year 1942. Then the Cabinet Mission of 1946 was formed, and the Constituent Assembly, Cabinet Mission 1946, formation of the Constituent Assembly came into effect, and the Cabinet Mission provided for indirectly electing the Constituent Assembly. The Assembly consisted of totally 389 members, out of which 292 were elected from the provinces and 93 would be nominated by the princely states, and 4 were to be nominated from the Chief of Command areas. Finally, the Joint Constituent Assembly of India and Pakistan happened, and its first meeting was held on 9th December 1946, but it was boycotted by Muslim League and they demanded for a separate assembly for Pakistan. The Mountbatten Plan for Indian Independence Act in 1947. So Lord Mountbatten, who was the last Governor General of India, had put forth the Indian Independence Act 1947. On 26 July 1947, the Governor General Lord Mountbatten announced setting up of a separate Constituent Assembly for Pakistan. And the Constituent Assembly of India on 14th August 1947, the Sovereign Assembly for India assembled under Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was elected as its president. And 7-member drafting committee was formed under the chairmanship of Dr. V.R. Ambedkar, and a drafting committee for the constitution was formed after the independence of India. The drafting committee took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days in framing the constitution, and the constitution was enacted and adopted on 26 November 1949. And some of the provisions related to citizenship, elections, provisional parliament, etc. came into force on the same day, and remaining provisions came into effect from 26th January 1950. So Constitution of India has some very distinct and unique features as compared to other constitutions of the world. And Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee, puts it that the framers had tried to accumulate and accommodate the best practices and the best features of all the other constitutions of the various countries, and keeping in the mind the peculiar problems of our country and the diversity and the stretch of our country were also to be kept in mind in framing the constitution, because of which our constitution became a very huge and bulky document.